Well, hello to everybody in Facebook land and beyond. I hope your Monday is starting out well. Well, I'll start all over because I really don't know what's going on with Facebook. As usual, audio looks or the video looks pretty messed up, but greetings to everyone. Glad you're all here on this fine, wonderful day. It's another beautiful day to be us. I hope your week is starting off well. I know I had a really good weekend with my son. We went down catfishing down south. Our usual time of year we start doing that. And we had a good time. A little warm, not too warm. Actually, not warm enough for the catfish though. So, but it's just always good being with my son. We have a good time together and we enjoy each other's company. So, one of the beauties and gifts of recovery. Children that love me, like being with me. Good morning, Laura. Lauren, how are you this morning? Good to see you. We're off to looks like it's going to be another warm week out here in the Coachella Valley. Can't complain. Kill the coronavirus, hopefully. So hope you're all staying safe and healthy. I know me and my family, we are. We take the necessary precautions, but hey, Keith, we take the necessary precautions, but we're also enjoying life. We're not letting this thing get us down. So, and we're grateful. We're fortunate. My wife gets to continue working, and so we're doing okay. So I just pray that you're all doing okay, staying safe, and your family's all safe. So with that, that's about it for the hellos. And I'm going to continue today with chapter 12 of my book. We're getting down. I got one more chapter, chapter 13. Finding your authentic self. Your authentic self ought to be interesting. Thank you for those that have journeyed with me off and on or continuously through this journey through my book. It's just little tidbits of it. There's so much more in my book than what I'm doing on a weekly basis. I could talk hours about this kind of recovery, and it actually needs to be talked about a lot. It needs to be talked about a whole lot, really. But I do what I can when I can, and it helps those that want the help and need the help, and plant the seeds to those that maybe later will get the help they need. So I'm just grateful that God called me out of the pits of hell and gave me a purpose to go on with my life. So I know that I am the voice of the voiceless, of the many, many, many voiceless, both men and women in this world, and the parents and my wonderful sister-in-law that I guess I could say I abandoned 35 years ago, but I only abandoned because I didn't think nobody wanted nothing to do with me on that side of the family. I'm helping her now, and she one of my one of her sons, my perpetrator, also got her son. So she's going through some times right now, and it's been a year of trying to rebuild the relationship, and suddenly he decided that he's going to go backwards. So this is not an easy thing to deal with by any means. And this word forgiveness is one that just scares the living bejesus out of people and turns them away from whatever kind of recovery they might be in. I guess I can understand it, but because I was that way at one point. But you know, um, forgiveness is the key to true happiness and freedom. I'll tell you right now, and you might not be able to see it, but I promise you, I have never felt truer or freer than I did today, and continued today. That the day that I truly, truly finally let go of everything and forgave my stepfather and my mother. It was a day that I'll never forget. So speaking of that, there's still things that goes on in everybody's life. And so every day I'm making a living amends and strengthening my self forgiveness. And the reality is that God forgives us. We ask forgiveness from God. As far as from the east to the west, God forgives us. So do we really have the right to forgive ourselves? I mean, we've already been forgiven by the God of the Most High. And I think in one of our freedom studies on forgiveness, it says we don't have that right. So I think more than self forgiveness, it's learning how to keep constantly let go of things that we're holding on to. Because we tend to hold on to these things that have hurt us. I mean, for me, it was 38 years of holding on to stuff. And it becomes a habit. And so as we go through our everyday life, we have other harms that come upon us, however small they might be. And instead of letting them go, we're choosing to hold on to them, right? And so if we've already been forgiven, right? If we've already been forgiven, then why are we holding on to stuff? Is it because we like to wallow in self-pity and self-loathe? Is it because we get the attention? I mean, I'm going to be real honest. In Canada, right here, I mean, I can remember in AA, you watch a person relapse, and here's what happens when you first come into recovery. Whether it's AA, whether it's NA, no matter what it is, newcomers get a lot of attention, a lot of love. Just the way it is, and as it should be. And after about and that continues for up to about a year, and then after that, you're kind of now it's time for you to start giving back. And I've seen people relapse more and more, and when they come back, they get so much attention. It's unreal. And I've seen people relapse, in my journey, and when they do, I don't treat them any differently than I did the day before they relapse. It's just real simple. So what happened? What happened? Let's sit down. Let's figure out why you relapsed. Because relapse started a long time ago. I don't put them down. I don't beat them up because they don't need that. Whether it's an emotional relapse or a relapse of some kind of drug, right? It doesn't matter. They don't need to be told that they're knuckleheads. They don't need to be shamed because they're already feeling of shame. You know? And so it's we have to let the newcomers sit down and listen. But when they do relapse, are they self-loathing? There's a lot of questions that need to be asked. But I know that a lot of people, they live in the sea of uncomfortableness that they say they want out of, but they're very comfortable operating in it because it's all they know. And so forgiveness is a really hard step to get out of that sea of uncomfortableness. And that makes it really difficult for people to move on with their recovery. They get out, they put one foot out of that. They know how to navigate in that sea of uncomfortableness, sea of adversity, we call it. They know how to get around it and how to manipulate people. But when they start walking the road of recovery, especially if they have a good mentor, or therapist, or counselor, or sponsor, whatever you want to call them, they can't manipulate no more. So we need to start letting go of stuff. And the way we do that is with a good mentor, a good coach, a good sponsor, and we just walk with them. We let them love us back to life as was done to me. When we think about forgiveness, the truth is that we have all, some people are going to probably cringe at this, but we've all been perpetrators of harm to others at some time or other. Think about that. Here we are, we're upset at somebody that's harmed us. We're upset at somebody that's harmed us. We don't want to let go of it. We want to hold on to our anger and our rage. We want to attack them in every way possibly we can, verbally, emotionally, spiritually. But yet we need to take a time out, go step back and go walk and look in the mirror. Because we've perpetrated just as much as anybody. It might not be a sexual perpetration, and that's not what I'm saying here. Perpetrators can perpetrate a lot of different stuff. Physical harm, emotional harm, spiritual harm, a lot of different things. So when you think about it, we've all been perpetrators of harm to others at some time or other in our life. Because the important part to remember is that hurt people hurt people. So we've all been hurt at some point and then lashed out from that place of pain. It's just the reality of it. Oftentimes you hear me talk all the time. Somebody jumps down your face. It's usually not, you're usually not the problem. It's usually something inside of them that was triggered. That's the real problem. But we take everything so personally. And especially for any kind of survivor, you do take things personally because all your life you've just been beat up and nothing's ever good enough. You hide behind perfectionism. You hide behind, being successful in work. There's a lot of things you hide behind. But that doesn't, the pain's still there. All the time you hear people go, the abuse is what it was. I don't let it bother me no more. No, you don't let it bother you because it's how you're acting and you don't see it. It's not bothering you, but it's bothering everybody else in your life. They're just too afraid to say it. So the other thing that's really important to remember along this journey is that we are not our behavior. Okay, that's so important. People go, man, I'm so bad. I'm so this. Look, you're not your behavior. What happened to us is just that. It's what happened to us. It's not who we are. And learning to separate the person from the action can be difficult. But it has to start from inside each of us. And again, that's another thing why you need a good mentor, a good coach. Because we know how to self-initiate hate on ourselves and beat us up so bad. We hurt somebody. We make a mistake. There I go again. See, everything I do turns into crap. I can't do nothing right. All right? We have to separate the person that we really are, that God has us to be, that God, put on this earth to be, from what happened to us as children or teenagers and young adults. And that's where like I said, that's where a mentor comes along, and that's what I needed. That would tell me every time he saw me, Randy, you're enough and you're lovable. Nobody ever told me that until this one man. It was Roy Jarvis. He passed away a couple years ago. He was my Coda sponsor. He told me that every time he saw me. My AA sponsor, Way Spiritual Dave. I mean, those guys were really, really good with me. They didn't allow me to wallow in my self-pity. They called me on my garbage, but they loved me back to life. They didn't beat me up like had happened to me all my life. I surrounded myself with a community of people that allowed me to have my voice, that allowed me to have my feelings. Through recovery, I've learned that although I have done things I bitterly regret, and believe me, there's things that I regret. I mean, having the affair was something that I still to this day will just cringe in my stomach, and I'll sit with my wife and I'll tell her, God, I'm so sorry for what I did to you, And which actually I thought that was going to be completely unforgivable. But those actions don't have to define who I am today. And they don't define who I am today. Kathy forgave me really quick when I had that affair. Kathy has never, or my children, have never thrown anything that I did in the past in my face. Because the past is the past, it's done and over with. There's nothing we can do about it. All they look at is today. And they look at the grandfather, they look at the father, they look at the husband that I am today, and that's all they care about. Because my actions today are 180 degrees different than what they were before. So, why forgave? The Bible says, if you want to be forgiven, you must forgive. Go to the Lord's Prayer. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. What part of that do people not understand? Forgive us our trespasses, God, as we forgive those who trespass against us. My kids, my grandkids have never seen me drunk or out of control. My kids are fully forgiven me. My wife is fully forgiven me. So it's made it easier for me to let all that go. And and I know a lot of people have wives or family that just keep throwing the past in their face, and that is not cool. It makes it really hard for a person to change. I deal with those people all the time, and some of them make it, some of them don't. They just get tired of being beat up all the time, even though they're doing the right thing. You got to remember that forgiveness is an act of grace through understanding that I did the things I did. because what I believed at the time. It was just my false beliefs at that time. I'm going to go directly to the fair, and it's probably the biggest one, is that I was hanging around other businessmen that were successful and doing things with them. And hey, everybody else was doing it, so I just believed that it was the stuff that was right to do at the time. And I was just following the wrong community of people. I believed at the time that, hey, that's just part of life. Everybody eventually is going to have an affair or two, and you just got to live with it. I knew inside. I mean, you know, even going back to when I was young, teenager, and I started smoking weed, doing cocaine, and drinking. I mean, I knew it was wrong, but nobody else was giving me any kind of acceptance or approval. So why should I hang around those people when if I just smoke a little weed, go to a couple parties, hang out with the guys that I surf with all the time? I'm accepted and not judged. As I've grown and learned how to be more conscious of what I believe, how to have more self-awareness, become less reactive, and be more introspective, my belief changes. Again, my beliefs changed because I had a community of people around me that were walking the talk. And not only were they walking the talk, is that they believed in me, and I liked what I saw in their lives, and I saw how their lives were lived inside a room, whether it was church or the rooms of AA, and how they were lived outside. There's a lot of them in both those places that they say one thing in the room and they walk out the door and it's like, man, what'd you do? Put on a different face? Completely different. But that's not who I chose to hang around. When I saw people that could actually walk the talk, I said, okay. And then I saw the results of their changed behaviors and attitudes. That's what I wanted. So that's what I did. So as my beliefs changed, my behavior changed. And what also should be included in that, when my community changed, my beliefs changed, and then my behavior changed. Okay? Here's the thing though, all of us, and I'll talk about myself, underneath everything, I've always been the same unique individual. I've been a boy that dreamed of being a firefighter, who loved to surf and who loved to build things. Those are the essential components of selfhood, are constant. Those right there, those essential components of selfhood are constant, no matter what, even to this day. I'm 63, and every time I see a fire truck, my father was a fireman for the city of Long Beach back in 1967 to 69, youngest engineer in the history of Long Beach at the time, at 32. There's times I'll walk by and I'll cry seeing a fire truck. That was my dream, but my dream was squashed by two very manipulative and very and respectfully sick mother and stepfather that pushed me away from it. Hey, I love the beach and I love the surf. And today, if I could, I mean, all I got to do is go to islands and restaurant islands, and I sit down watching those surf movies, and I get lost in them because I can smell the salt air. I can hear the water splashing underneath my board. Like I can hear the waves and the water underneath my board as I'm riding away. And I love to build things. I mean, I was in construction for 40 years. What does that tell you? I love to build things, you know. And I still love to build things. I'm trying to figure out how I can start doing a little more building with the time that I have on my hand, which isn't a whole lot because of everything else I got. But finding my own innocence in the reactions I have had out of pain or fear was essential to my self-forgiveness. I didn't know any better. It was just all my pain. And finding, that innocence in there. I was acting like a 12-year-old kid. I didn't know what else to do. I had literally been fighting for my life. Literally been fighting for my life in all aspects of it. And sometimes, well, you fight for your life, or was it life or death? No, it's not. A couple of times it was life or death. But I was fighting just to survive. There were times I was fighting to be alive, literally, when my stepfather was beaten me. There's a lot of times I fought literally for my life, and then fought literally for my emotional and spiritual life, trying to make it in a world that nobody told me how to live in. I had to learn on myself, and a lot of people do, and I understand that. I had one guy said, "Randy, don't be so, I wasn't any bad. I wasn't any, this and that, but he was just as bad off as I was. But yet he was a college football player, but he still had plenty of problems." And I brought this up a little bit last week. I want to be really clear about that. I mean, really, really clear about this. Forgiveness does not mean letting the abuser back into your life. Under no way, how, or circumstance is it a must that you let that perpetrator back in your life. Finding your compassion is necessary for real forgiveness. But it doesn't have to turn you into a mindless, accepting simpleton. You will still be capable of discernment. Get that last part, but it doesn't have to turn you into a mindless, accepting simpleton. Because you just set yourself up to get hurt again. And I'm gonna say something right now, because I think about that. And if you think about what's happening in the United States right now, so this is bring back to California. The problem is, and some people might get upset with me for this, and that's okay. You have a right to be upset, but I also have a right for my voice. That there's way too many mindless, accepting simpletons in this world today. Bunch of sheeple being led to slaughter. That's not who we are. We have a right to protect ourselves, even as adults, even from past perpetrators. Forgiveness does not mean that people will be allowed back in our life. They've hurt us, and they've hurt us deeply. My mother was saying she was innocent the same way I am. Absolutely was. She was guilty for what she did to me, but she was innocent the same way I am. She did what she did because she believed her thoughts. She believed her thoughts just as I did what I did because I believed my thoughts. So we get caught in this little game all the time. It's like, well, that's just what I believed at the time. But we don't think about other people. Is it okay for, hey, how you doing, Frank? Is it okay for me to get after these people? But, what about me? What about the way I acted? So I'm not going to forgive them because the way they acted, but in a lot of ways, I've done the same thing to other people, and I expect to be forgiven by them. It doesn't make any sense, does it? The trouble with all this is that, like for my mother, for instance, it continues to believe that those thoughts, so she is still toxic to me. So my mother, at the time that I wrote this book, she still believed all those thoughts. Matter of fact, she believed them so much that when we wanted to reconcile, my therapist stepped in and helped us out. She wanted to blame me for the abuse. She's extremely toxic. She never could see through her own pain. She couldn't look in the mirror and see her part in anything that happened to me as a child. Where a mother's supposed to protect her child at all costs, she put this child in harm's way and almost had him killed one night. Although I forgive her, I did forgive her because I understand on the most fundamental level why she did what she did. And that does not mean, just because I understand and I forgive her, does not mean that I invite her back into my life. And I will tell you this about my mother. I forgave her. I'm sorry that she was unable to see any part in her part. When the Bible says honor your mother and your father, people say, Randy, how do you honor your mother and your father when you're not letting her back in your life? Well, here's how I honored my mother. My father was dead, and he was a great man. My stepfather, so my mother and my stepfather, how do you honor? I honor them, by not assassinating their character anymore. All I have to do is love them. The Bible says I'm supposed to love them and forgive them, and that's what I did. That's how I honored them. My mom never saw me the way I am today. She never saw the son that passed her. She never saw the son that was happy, healthy, and in love. She never saw the son that was helping hundreds of men and their families who had gone through the same thing I went through. She never was able to see him, and I'm sorry for that because she died 2 or 3 years ago. And I will tell you this: I'm sorry she died, but I was able to literally lay my head down on my pillow at night. I can go to sleep, and I felt good. I didn't worry. I wasn't going, man, why didn't I do this? Well, I should have done this. I didn't. I did everything I could on my side of the street to keep it clean and see what could happen. So that's, I didn't finish yesterday or last week's thing. I mean, I got caught up. As I am today. So we're probably going to go a little bit longer today. So just hang on as long as you can, and I appreciate it. But this is really an important chapter in the book, and it's really an important topic. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to talk about degrees of forgiveness. Degrees of forgiveness. So the true forgiveness is about realizing that the mechanism for all human behavior is the same, and that we are all equally guilty and equally innocent. So think about that. We're all equally guilty and we're all equally innocent. Aside from accidents, of course, like tripping over a crack in the sidewalk. Human beings act because they believe what they think. And we're going right back to that, because they believe what they think. We're all equally guilty and all equally innocent of our behavior. If you think about it. You do what you do is because of what you believe. And you believe what you think. What I find is that people in recovery, the truly spiritual people, okay? A lot of people say they're spiritual, and that's not, I'm not casting judgment on anybody, but the way I look at spiritual people are the ones who actively question what they think and who work to be kind instead of right. So the question is, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? I hear all the time, but Randy, you might be thinking, what I've done isn't nearly as bad as what other people have done to me. I hear that all the time. And I know a lot of you hear that all the time. It's a common statement. And it doesn't matter bad or good. Why does it have to be bad or good? It was done, bad or good. Trauma is trauma. Pain is pain. Yours isn't greater or lesser than mine, and mine isn't greater or less than yours. And people, they got this big comparison, what other people have done to me, okay? I've done isn't nearly as bad as what other people have done to me. Well, maybe that's true. But maybe what you have done physically isn't as bad as what was done to you. But you're not that other person, and maybe that other person has less tolerance, and maybe what you did was less physically, but much more emotionally and spiritually damaging. You're not them. We have to think about that. We're always comparing ourselves to other people. There's very few things that we're alike in. You never know what anybody has walked through in this life. You never know the road they've taken. You never know the road they've taken. Everybody is fighting a battle. I really don't care what they say. I don't, because it gets down to it. They're all fighting a battle. And that's okay. Let them fight it. But don't add fuel to the fire. Because, you got to remember, what I've done isn't nearly as bad as what other people have done to me. That there's different levels of offenses that can happen. Right? The mechanism, though, is always the same. The mechanism is always the same. It's coming out of what we believe. And you know what? It works for me. Why is it should work for you? It doesn't hurt me, so it shouldn't hurt you. Well, you're not them. It's like somebody says, I know exactly how you feel. Wrong. Wrong. You don't know how they feel because you're not them. People lose a loved one, right? And they come to you and you're talking, hey brother, or hey sister, I know exactly how you feel. No, you don't. That's the worst word you can tell somebody who's grieving, because you don't know the relationship they have with the person that passed away. Maybe they're happy they passed away because they were just not a healthy person. You don't know what people go through on a daily basis. We take everything personally, and we expect everybody to be able to take what we give them. Think about the guy honking the horn going down the road. I use this as an example all the time. Flipping the bird at you. He's all pissed off. You go, man, what's on? And you engage with him because it's like, oh yeah, well you think you got it, man. I'm like, watch this. You run him down the road, and guys end up in a parking lot and start going blows, sometimes. You really think that guy is mad at you? You really think the guy honking his horn and passing you, flipping you the bird is mad at you? What happened last night? What happened that morning? Did he get a call that maybe his son was killed in a car accident the night before? Did him and his wife have a massive blowout that morning? Did he get laid off? There's a number of different things and scenarios that could have taken place before he left his house. And you just happen to be the one person, or the first person, I should say, that he ran across and he just unleashed on you. And the reality is it had nothing to do with you. You ever think about that? No, nobody does. We believe our thoughts, and based on what we believe, we act. I know a lot of people think that their abuser is just a pure manifestation of evil, and therefore you can't forgive them. Well, let's just go back right to the Bible. Where does it say that, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us? Forgive others, and your Father will forgive you. Forgive others, but don't worry about the evil people. Forgive others, but don't forgive the person that your husband or wife had an affair with. No, that's not what it says. There's no but. There's none of that. Forgive, period. Forgive. And actually, if you believe that way, it actually should make your job a little bit easier. Holding on to anger and hatred against someone who is so mentally ill that he or she is literally insane could be like ruining your own life because you can't let go of what a tornado did to you. Right? Do you have a control of the tornado? You know a person's insane. Most people, there's the rare occasion with somebody that you don't know it, but usually you know when people's pretty whacked out and not feeling good, but you keep letting them in your life. Look at, you have a choice in everything that you do. And I know as a child, as a young teenager, it's like, if I say something, where am I going to live? How am I going to eat? You're going to take all this away from me. I got it. I get it. I get it. When I was 17, I asked my grandma, please let me come live with you. But that's all I said, though. I said, oh, sweetheart. She goes, I'd love to, but I can't. But afterwards, she told me, had I have known why you wanted to come live with me, you could live with me instantly. We're so afraid because perpetrators are so good at manipulating and making us believe that we're the problem. It's just, that's not the truth. I was rebellious. Yeah, why was I rebellious? Because I was having the crap beat out of me all the time. I was being sexually abused, spiritually abused. Does that justify it? I'm probably not. But so when you're dealing with a person like that, you're dealing with a tornado, basically. You can't control it. The person's out of control. They themselves are out of control. They have no control over their actions. And again, you can be right or you can be happy. For years, I wasted a great deal of energy justifying my rage. I made lists of transgressions that my stepfather and my mother committed against me, and had all the proof that what they did was unforgivable. But the reality is, and if you're out there and you're going to be listening to this at a later date, or you're listening to it right now, those of you listening, it's going to ruin your life. Because that's all it did to me, is it ruined my life. It kept me in prison. My abuse stopped when I was like 19 or 20 years old. But I kept on abusing myself, because don't you know what happened to me? I had proof that I was right. Proof. But I was drunk. I was cheating on my wife. And I was constantly feeling less than. I didn't have anybody. And to be honest with you, in all fairness, nobody ever came up to me. And of course, I didn't seek it. My part is I didn't seek the help that I really needed. And you hear people all the time go, God, I wish I would have got sober or taken care of this when I was younger. Well, then let's step back and go, is God or everything? Or either God is everything or God is nothing. And if God is everything, then everything in your life is exactly how it's supposed to be. And it's all for a reason. Nothing in this world happens in God. Nothing in God's world happens by accident. I was carrying around this blind rage for so long that I didn't even know who I'd be without it. It was a defense mechanism. You were either my worst enemy or my best friend, and you didn't want to be my worst enemy. And if you attacked me verbally, well, wrong thing to do. Wrong thing to do that. And this was again 15 years ago. That when I got done with you, I didn't like to fight. I was scared to fight because I thought I would kill somebody. But when I got done with you, you were so low you had to reach up to touch bottom. And again, we go back to that sea of adversity, because it's scary to consider letting go of something that feels so formative and familiar. You've been living in the sea of uncomfortableness, the sea of adversity, right? Everything you know is in this little circle, this little sea. There's love in there. There's happiness. There's joy. There's a lot of hate. There's a lot of rage. There's a lot of things in there. You know how to operate in that world. You know how to manipulate people. You know how to navigate through it. So it's scary to consider letting go of all that garbage you're holding on to, because you're comfortable in the uncomfortableness of the life you're living. Because when you step outside of that and you start this journey of recovery, what happens is it gets even scarier. Because now you don't have the substance, whatever that is, your addiction, whatever that is, to mask your feelings of pain and shame. Now you're facing them with a mentor by your side, with nothing to, we just, all you get to feel is you get to feel your emotions and your feelings, and you never felt them because you've been putting them away for so long. You've been masking them for so long. And so as you start the journey, you start feeling really good, and then you start doing this work that includes forgiveness and so on and so forth. And it gets uncomfortable, so you step back into the sea that you're comfortable in. This is typical. It's part of the recovery thing. You're kind of going back and forth, back and forth. But if you have a good, strong mentor that works with you, you hold on. That mentor holds on to you. He gets you out of those bad spots. Just remember this, that letting go of your rage over time is going to heal a lot of physical elements that you have. Letting go of your rage means that you will not fall into despair. Or you will fall into despair. Letting go of your rage, no, it doesn't mean that you will fall into despair. You're not going to fall into despair if you let go of your rage. It isn't necessary to rank the degrees of offenses in order to forgive them. Whether the offender is your best friend saying something that upsets you, or your partner cheating on you, or your abuser hurting you, the mechanism behind all action is identical. We believe what we believe and we act out of those beliefs. You can forgive your friend for saying something that upsets you really probably fairly easy. Unless it's something that's repetitive. That can usually be done on the spot. That's one degree. Your partner cheating on you. That's the next level. That's a little bit harder. My wife, fortunately, she didn't want to be in prison all her life in a mental prison, so she forgave me right away. But when you get down to abuse, an abuser hurting you, all the mechanisms are identical. That scar, that wound, can take years. But it happens quicker if you decide to take the walk of recovery. Your best friend may have believed that her being in a rush made it necessary to cut you off in the middle of your story. Right? So you're telling the story and it's real intense, and this happens all the time. And it's part of communication workshops we do, is that you're telling the story, and your best friend sits there and they're listening, and like this, they might be in a hurry to go somewhere, or as you're talking to them, they're thinking about how they can fix you and answer you, so they cut you off in the middle of the story. My wife's excuse for it was, and she's worked really hard, she's getting really good at it, is that she said, well, I don't want to forget what I wanted to tell you. Well, then take a pencil and paper and write it down. But if you're going to hold on to some anger, rage, and unforgiveness because someone cut you off in the middle of a story, that's not worth it. In fact, the right thing to do is to sit down, if they're that good of a friend, and say, hey, this really bothers me. And I'm telling the story, man. I mean, I'm pouring out my heart to you. And then I feel this cutoff the minute that I'm interrupted. And it feels like you're not taking me seriously. It really hurts. Your partner may have believed that he or she could have only be happy with someone else. I can answer that. See, the problem was it had nothing to do with Kathy. It had everything to do with me when I had that affair, and that was that I didn't think. You guys, I know you hear me say this all the time. My story never changes. It's not going to change. And I want everybody to continue to hear this, because it was real easy to blame it on my wife. It was real easy to leave my wife when I had this other woman hanging on my arm promising me the world. Right? But the reality is, I left because I didn't feel I deserved somebody like Kathy. I didn't deserve to be loved the way that Kathy loved me. The only thing that Kathy did wrong, the only thing she was guilty of, was loving me unconditionally. Imagine that. Loving me unconditionally. And I leave her. I didn't think I was worth it. Again, it was a belief that caused the action. It's what I believed. And it wasn't true. I thought she was going to leave me. There was nothing further from the truth. At some point, we've all believed in something that we found out later was not true. We've all believed it. They say when you're worrying about stuff, 90% of what you worry about won't come true, and the other 10% you can't do nothing about anyway. We make up these stories. Survivors are the best at it, making up stories about what's going to happen. And it's always some tragic thing. And rarely, if ever, do they come true. Then afterwards, we regret what we did because we realize it was based on a false belief. I can just remember that last month or even before, I was in so much emotional pain over what I did with Kathy, so much regret. It was all based on a false belief. Kathy loved me. She loved me unconditionally. I had three beautiful children. And it wasn't anybody's fault but my own. Now, they say, my therapists say this, and I do agree with this, that everybody has a part in stuff that happens in our marriage. You know, our therapist sat down and says, Kathy, you're 50% responsible. Randy, you're 50% responsible, but you're 100% responsible for your 50%. That's kind of hard to bite off when you think about it. I'm not going to go into it. There was. So Kathy was 50%, and I was 50%. There's a lot of things you got to look at. And if you, for me, God performed miracles in my life that He showed me stuff that I never ever even thought about when it was happening. So what's different between healthy people and unhealthy people is that the latter still justify what they did because they can never be wrong. You know why they can never be wrong? Because then they prove to their abuser, usually a father or a mother or a grandparent, see, and I'm famous for it. When I screwed up, made a mistake, dude, there you are. You're not going to be nothing but an idiot. I told you would never amount to nothing. So everything that we do, we have to be right with. It's not our fault. I'm good. I'm perfect. You got to remember that recovery demands a lot more than us. We don't get to waste time justifying past behavior. We know that just keeps us sick and miserable. It doesn't do no good to justify past behavior. It's done and over with. Why are we even trying to talk about the past? We've got to realize what we've done in the past. We've got to recognize it. We've got to write about it. But then what are we going to do today to rectify the past? There ain't no justifying. It's done and over with. It's too late to justify it. And you can't justify it in the mind of somebody that you've hurt. So let's just realize what we've done, come up with a plan to rectify it, and then move forward. It's that simple. Thank you, Lauren. I'm glad we made it too. Instead, we choose to question our beliefs, acquire new, more accurate information, and create better beliefs. That's the right thing to do. It takes less energy. It takes less energy to question our own beliefs, acquire new ones and more accurate information, and create better beliefs. That's what I did when I got in recovery. Man, I dove in. I started doing a bunch of research on, especially on religion, because that was my biggest hang-up. People allowed me to do it. They allowed me to question the God that I grew up with. They wanted me to. And it was well worth it. It paid off. It paid dividends. I didn't fall into these false gods of AA. Bill and Bob would be rolling over in their grave right now if they knew what was happening in Alcoholics Anonymous and all the recovery rooms. Rolling over in their grave. On that day that I truly started to forgive Jack, and the day that I and my mother, and the day that I did forgive, my therapist Deborah explained to me in detail how perpetrators think. She also described the normal process that boys go through when they are discovering and developing their sexuality. But what happened was that my stepfather Jack crossed the line that he should have never crossed. But then, reminding me that hurt people, she stated that Jack had probably been abused himself as a boy. And this is where people just look at me and go, Boyd, you are out of your mind. How can you even think about his life? Well, because he was hurt too. He was a hurt man. His abuse of me had nothing to do with sex whatsoever. And not only with me, abuse period, whether it's sexual, physical, emotional, or spiritual, has everything to do with power over you using their spiritual knowledge to manipulate you, to coerce you, all right? Same with emotional, physical, and spiritual, and sexual. Specifically, they want someone else to share their pain with them. Now, in saying this, I'm not condoning or co-signing what anybody does. You can't do that. What they did was wrong. There's no doubt about it, but you still, what was their life, what was their life? It really made me wonder, well, what was Jack's life like growing up? And I also tried to imagine what it was like for him when he was abusing me. to live with live with his past pain and guilt he felt for what he was doing to him. Maybe he wasn't. He was a sociopath. I can tell you that right now, by definition, by DSM definition. He was definitely a sociopath. So maybe he was feeling nothing. I just, there's a, I think I read this a couple of weeks ago, but here, I had a guy ask me just recently about how, I'll find it for you guys, how people can do this without, here's what it is. Okay, so when it comes to that subject, what was it like for him? Well, look at, I think one of the reasons we don't see evil is because we find it so difficult to believe. Okay, we find it so difficult to believe that evil individuals actually exist. We can't imagine someone deceiving us with no consciousness, hurting others with no remorse, spinning outrageous fabrications to ruin someone's reputation, or pretending he or she is spiritually committed yet has no fear of God before his or her eyes. There's your answer right there. They have no fear of God before his or her eyes. You can't imagine it, but yet there it is. I also wonder oftentimes what it was like for him to climb back into bed with my mother after sexually abusing me. You get up in the middle of the night and come climb in bed with me and then go back to my mom's room. Here's what's important to understand is asking these questions is not the same as feeling sorry for Jack. Although in a way I do feel sorry for him, or I did feel sorry for him. He died about 5 or 6 years ago. But I don't feel sorry for him in a holier than thou way. That's the important part. I don't pity him. I feel compassion for him because I now understand I have abused other people myself, not sexually. I abused my wife. I abused my children emotionally. I've never abused I've never abused a child. I've never sexually abused a child or anyone else. But for many years, I believed that I was justified driving drunk and risking the lives of everyone unfortunate enough to be on the road with me. That's abuse. Pure, 100% unadulterated abuse. Because I was risking other people's lives for my own convenience because of what I believed at the time. If you are religious, you recognize that all faiths, can't say it right, Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, Hinduism, Judaism, teach this type of compassion. Okay? They do teach this kind of compassion. This is what the Buddha did, what Christ did. Forgiveness has nothing to do with condoning abusive behavior. Forgiveness is about compassion. This is what Christ did. Forgiveness has nothing to do with condoning abusive behavior. Forgiveness is about compassion. Well, that's it for this week. Thanks for hanging in there a little bit longer this week. Trying to get these through. Next week we're going to finish up chapter 12 on forgiveness, part 4, about what forgiveness means. Get into a little bit about the good part about forgiveness. And I think there's a part in there too. If not, I'll make sure I do it. Is how we can start forgiveness. Real simple 8-step process. Hey, check out my life coaching page, changeyourlifestorynow.com, changeyourlifestorynow.com. We do life coaching, mentoring. Kathy and I do marriage counseling, couples counseling. I'm SIMBA certified, saving your marriage before it starts. And actually that works for both married couples that are married already, and then we do it to all of our marriage counseling couples. It's a great little tool to use. It's not a psychological exam. It kind of brings you, it lets you see each other's views on financial things, sexual changes, spiritual things. It's a phenomenal worksheet. It's a great tool for couples to walk into a new marriage or to help shift their marriage if they've been married for a while. It's like 99.9% accurate with all of our couples we've done so far. So we've got We love working with couples. Kathy will work with the women. I work with the men, and then we work together as a couple. So with them as a couple. I also work on the addiction part. Here's the deal: it's under addictions. You got abuse, you got inner healing, you got spiritual. They're all one thing. So I work with people on all levels. You can check out my website, changeyourlifestorynow.com. You can see, yeah, Keith, just send me a reminder, please. Um, you can, go to that. I'm sorry, I got distracted. Go to changeyourlifestorynow.com and fill out the contact form, and then I'll get back to you. Usually the same day, usually within a couple hours, and you can also see the 3 packages that we have available for coaching, and then also we're working on putting together a marriage page. It's not up there yet, but we're going to have a marriage page because I do marriages, and we're small enough. My wife does all the wedding planning and stuff too. So, what are you waiting for? We've all got hurts, habits, and hangups too that need help. So, there's no day to day like to start your new life. So head on over and join up. Remember, you get my book, Healing the Wounded Child Within, on Amazon. It's in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook, all 3 formats. You can also get my book, the 30-Day Devotional to Wholeness. 30-Day Devotional to Wholeness. Hey, Keith, I don't know what the sorry is for, but just hit me up and remind me when that sit-in is, okay? And my 7-day challenge workbook for the Healing the Wounded Child Within. Please visit our website, courageoushealers.org, see what we're up to over there. If we're looking for donations, monthly or one-time donations. We can't continue without you. We're working really hard on developing programs. I'm doing all this by myself, basically, because I don't have the money yet to pay somebody to help me out. But we want to develop more workshops, different programs, different avenues for survivors to be able to get help. So, if you just go to courageoushealers.org, click on the donate button, donate whatever you can. You can become a monthly donor, or you can just donate once. $5, $10, $15, $100, $500, whatever it is, it's fine. We're grateful for whatever we can get, and all the money stays in Courageous Healers. If you donate $60 or more, I will send you a signed copy of my book, Healing the Wounded Child Within, and a copy of my 30-Day Devotional to Wholeness. Be sure to join me Friday mornings from 9 to 12 on 100.1 Remnant Radio FM. It's a Christian radio station. I talk about a lot of recovery stuff and on that channel as well. I think so. You can join me every Friday morning from 9 to 12 on 100.1 FM. Yeah, we've got our workshop series, Unmasking Yourself, coming up. We've already done the communication workshop. On June 13th, God willing, we're going to do the Journey to You, which is going to get deep into why you are the way you are, our generational curses, or how our learned behaviors. We're going to dig deep into that and give you some new ways to start switching those destructive patterns. And then on September 12th, Secrets in Silence. And then the last one will be December 5th. September 12th. That's not what I said. September 12th, Secrets in Silence. December 5th, Unforgivness, right before Christmas. These are all 4 to 6 hour workshops. Again, go to courageoushealers.org, click on the workshop tab at the top, and you can read about all the workshops, and you can sign up for them right there. Just click on the register there. You can pay for it, register. In the event we can't hold the next workshop on June 13th because of this Corona thing, there's 2 options I'm going to give you. You can either get a refund or we'll just hold on to your money. We will have these workshops. It's just a matter of, it just might get postponed, okay? So just know that we're not going to take your money and not give it back to you or not move forward with it. I'm going to post the link to those workshops right now for you, so you got it. There, it's up. So you go, just posted the link to the workshops, okay? So Remember that if nobody tells you they love you today, Randy does. More importantly, God does. Thanks for joining me today, guys. I really appreciate it. I couldn't do this without all of you. You're making this possible. Everybody have a super, super blessed week, super blessed day, evening, wherever you might be. And I love you all, and I'll talk to you next week. Same time, same channel.